So good luck. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dilshad Jeffrey, and welcome to Strategic Business Leader webinar model. Just to give you a brief as to how I'm going to take this program through for the next 5 days. On the first day, that's today, I'll be taking you through the introduction to SBL examination, and then a little bit on examiner approach. And from today and tomorrow and day after, I'll be touching on the technical areas that will be mainly important and will be tested on the SBL examination. And on the fourth and the fifth day, I'll be taking you through two past papers in detail as to how to tackle the whole examination. Right, so to begin with, so what is SBL? It's an innovative case study examination which looks at your integrated technical, ethical, and professional skills. Now, most of you wonder why such a paper that ACCA has introduced into this examination. ACCA would like to have students who are industry ready, meaning you are not only capable in passing exams, but you are also ready to go and work in a company, in a corporate setup. That's the whole idea. So a case study examination is basically questions set based on a scenario. I will get into the details. It's a 4-hour examination, right? Throughout ACCA, up until F9, and even all other papers, you'll be sitting for 3 hours plus the reading time. But this is the only exam where you'll be sitting for 4 hours. That's about 240 minutes. So it's a new experience, right? And you can attempt it for 100 marks. But there is 2 types of marks within this 100 marks. That is 80% for technical content and 20% for professional skills. I will give you the details in a while, but just for now, you remember that of your 100 marks, 80% are awarded for technical content and 20% for professional skills. And as with all other papers, you need just 50 marks to pass. And like I said, the scenario of a company will be about 12 to 15 pages, based on which you will be asked certain questions to answer. And all questions are based on the same scenario that will be given. And the emphasis is on a combination of technical and professional skills. One thing that I would like to emphasize is a 4-hour examination, which you are not used to. Even a 3-hour examination, after the examination, we feel very stressed. So this is another extra hour. So it needs a bit of practice in terms of setting your mood and being in one place for 4 hours, right? Which we normally don't do unless, of course, we are working in a company, on an assignment or a report, where we sit for long hours. But in an exam situation, it's the kind of pressure that you handle is quite different, right? It's like if I take cricket as an example, it's like the last ball 6 runs. You have to somehow do it. So it's about handling that pressure. That's quite important in terms of passing this exam. So that needs a lot of experience, self-confidence, knowing what to do, You can't just throw the bat, the way you want, right? So I will give you a lot of tips and techniques as to how to handle this, which you need to practice and put into place. Right. Moving on. So the skills and expertise you'll need for this particular exam. Bring forward the skills and knowledge from earlier learning. That is the knowledge that you have gained from subjects that you have learned before, that is up to F9, is important. And take a broad interest in their day-to-day work. Undertake wider reading and develop business acumen. Business acumen is business knowledge, which is very, very important for SBL exam. It's about business awareness, right? How companies strategize, how they react to different situations, how they react to competition, how they react to pestle factors. So it's very much real life, which is what will be exactly tested in SBL as well. Also demonstrate their technical skills in a practical context, professionalism and professional skills. For example, okay, we all know what is pestle or five forces is, but how do we apply in real life, right? And what are the limitations? How do we professionally act, right? And then show the ability to assess, interpret, and synthesize the scenario and other information to provide appropriate solution to the tasks required. So it's a bit of work, a bit of quality work that you need to showcase in the answer script. Right, now who is this strategic leader is? See, if you take a company, there is always a leader. Normally we refer to that guy as that person as the CEO, Chief Executive Officer, right? He's the captain of the ship, and his temper, his mindset, his knowledge will decide how the ship moves or how the company performs. So ACCA is trying to build quality leaders who can lead companies in real life. So it's about being a leader and also thinking strategically. So being a leader, you have to be clear and focused, identifying the key issues in any situation. As a leader, you should know what to do according to the situation. One solution will not suit all kinds of situation, right? What worked for you yesterday will not work for you today. So a leader should have the experience, expertise, and the maturity to decide what needs to be done, and also analyze and address ethical concerns. Ethics is important and must be adhered at all times, especially in the case of business. We must comply with ethical principles at all times. So for a leader, it's even more important because he sets the examples so that others could follow. Also use technical models and quantitative analysis to draw out key issues, establish causality, and integrate a wide range of factors into a coherent argument. It's not about just making a decision, it's about making an informed decision with a lot of factors that are taken into consideration, and also make recommendations that meet the needs of users and are fit for purpose. You will be, as a leader, a lot of people are surrounding you. We call them the stakeholders. People who are affected and who in turn can be affected by the activities of an organization. So as a leader, you have a responsibility to make sure their needs are met. Customers should be given a good quality product or a service. Employees should be given conducive working environment and a good pay. And the shareholders should be provided with sufficient returns for the risks that they undertake. So it's your responsibility to make sure that all are happy and things move forward. So what is thinking strategically? I will take you through what strategy is, but for now, strategically means taking a long-term perspective, right? We don't look at the immediate solution, but we look at the long term as well. Look at the whole organization, set the direction of the whole organization and integrate its activities. Consider the views of all stakeholders because everybody is part of this whole thing. Analyze the organization's resources and define resource requirements. Resources should be managed efficiently and effectively. And then relate the organization to its environments. Organization is part of the environment, it's not away. So within that part, what is your contribution? How do you handle the variables that are there in the environment to your advantage without affecting the variables that are there? Meaning sustainable business practices. Plus look at gaining a sustainable competitive advantage, right? So competitive advantage is something that you are good at, while the others do not have. So thinking strategically is a lot of work with lots of insights, experience, information, concern for everyone. So that's what leaders should do. So SBL is about molding a leader who can run a business in the best interest of all key stakeholders. Right, let's look at the syllabus. There are 8 areas, starting with leadership, then governance, conduct of the organizations, and then strategy, risk and risk management, technology and data analytics, and then organizational control and audit, then numbers, finance and planning and decision making, and innovation, performance excellence, and change management. So these are your key syllabus areas for the SBL examination, and which this is what we call as technical areas. Now, what you see in this slide is the 8 technical areas surrounded by another 5 red color boxes. So we have 8 technical areas, which is the syllabus for strategic business leader. But how you answer these will depend on these red color boxes, which we call as professional skills. So in the exam, you will be writing for 80%, but the marks will be given for 100%. Let me make it clear for you. For example, let's say strategy. There can be a question that goes as, what is strategy? And below, the question paper will say, answer it from an angle of communication or answer it from an angle of evaluation, right? Meaning, how you answer will depend on these professional skills. Now, if you take water, water does not have shape. Water will take the shape of the container that holds the water. So if you want the water to look like a Coke bottle, you put the water inside a Coke bottle. If you want the water to look like a square, you put the water into a box. So similarly, strategy, or what is strategy, the way we answer will depend on these skills. Now there's communication, commercial acumen, analysis, skepticism, and evaluation. I will take you through in detail Now, when you say skepticism, it means a questioning mindset, or we call it probe or challenge. For example, what is strategy? And if the professional skill that needs to be applied is skepticism, your answer should be something like, will the strategy work? Will the chosen strategy work for the company? If so, how far? Can we be successful in this context? How will the competition react? So we are challenging. Similarly, if the question says use the evaluation skill, then we are going to look at the positives and negatives of the chosen strategy. How good they are or how bad they are. What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? Similarly, if the professional skill is about communicating what strategy is, then we are informing someone, or we are convincing or persuading. Or if it is about commercial acumen, business knowledge, business awareness, right? To what extent these strategies, can we apply this in real life? Will it give us the competitive advantage? Can we beat competition? Can we gain market share? That is commercial acumen. So in the exam, you are writing for 80%, but you will be marked for 100%, right? Because the 5 skills area, it's about shaping your answer. Again, for example, all of us know what SWOT analysis is. Very simple: strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. But how we write SWOT in the answer will be decided by the professional skill. So when the examiner tells you to use communication, you should not go and evaluate SWOT. Or when he tells you to analyze, you should not use skepticism. Because then what we are doing is we are giving the wrong container. So it's very important that you provide the answer according to the container or the professional skill that is required. That now, example, let's say you're working in a company. You will not go against what your boss tells you. Simple as that. And SBL examination is very much like a day, in your office, right? As you go in the morning, your boss gives you some work, and then in 2 hours time he tells you to do something else, right? And then the day goes on. So this exam is also pretty much similar, right? So you get 20 marks for these professional skills. That is the containers, the 5 different shapes. All 5 will be examined in the same paper, and mark weightings across the skills may vary, right? So I will show you. So if you look at this marks allocation, for example, specimen 1, there were 3 tasks with subsections. There are marks for technical section, and there are marks for professional skills. If you look at the totals, technical will always be 80 and professional will always be 20, right? And if you look at A2 carries 4 professional marks, while all others carry 2. And if you look at specimen 2, number of tasks are 5 with subsections of A and B. But then again, technical marks, it's 80 and professional skill will remain at 20. But here it's equally divided. So that depends on the paper. But the total will never change. Technical will always be 80 marks and professional skill 20. I'll reiterate again. You are writing only for 80 marks. But the way you write is about the professional skills. So that gets you another 20 marks. A quick guide to dividing your time when you study. So delivering strategy, you need to spend quite a lot of time, 50%. Leadership and governance, 25, and strategy and risk and risk management, it's another 25%. And as a student, you must have a learning phase of technical content, revision phase, and then final preparation. It's very important. It's very important that you do mock examinations for SBL. If you are following via an ALP, you must do mock examination and get feedbacks from your respective tutors or lecturers, and improve on providing a solid answer script, because a lot of professionalism is expected in an SBL answer script, because you are a leader. As a leader, you need to set good examples and show professionalism in your answer script. So it's very important that you do mock examination and get feedback from a tutor. So that's the end of the intro. Let me start with the, before I start the technical knowledge, I have also uploaded another document that goes as SBL effective communication. Now, this is a very important document that you must read. Now, every question will want you to answer in a particular format. For example, when you go to office, your boss will tell you, write a report on one instance. On another instance, he'll tell you reply a mail, or he'll tell you to prepare slides. Similarly, in the SBL examination, you will also be asked to follow those kind of formats when you answer. For example, a question will tell you, prepare presentation slides about the advantages of big data analytics with supporting notes. So then you must know how to prepare slides. Or if it's a report, then you must know how to write a report, the format. So it's very important that you know the formats of these different ways of providing an answer. So when the examiner tells you to write a letter, you should not give it in the format of a report. Then you will not get marks. Similarly, when he wants you to prepare slides, you should not provide it in the format of a report, like how it happens in the office. When the boss wants you to prepare a report, you can't give him presentation slide, right? So similar setup. So I stress that you go through this document and find out the formats of these different tools. How is a letter written? If you say dear sir, how do you end it? Or if you put the name, how do you end it? There are differences. In writing a report, what is the format to follow? So this is a very important document, and you must go through this. Right, let's touch on the technical knowledge. What I'm going to do is, today, tomorrow, and day after, I'll be quickly taking you through the entire syllabus, that is the technical areas, along with a few questions here and there for you to understand as to how to answer. And then on the last 2 days, we will, practice 2 papers. Right, so SBL, it's about being a leader and thinking strategically. And we use our technical knowledge from these 5 different angles. That is the professional skills. So we've gone through all that. I will leave you to read it, when you want it. Right, so concept of strategy. Now, what is strategy? It's a, a concept where I would say the direction of an organization is decided upon. For example, what you want to do. Now, Porter says strategy is the position that an organization wants to achieve. A position. Should I be a cost leader or should I be a differentiator? It's a position. To be a cost leader, what should I do? Those are your implementation part. Doing certain things is not strategy. Achieving a particular position is strategy, and it's long term. You can say achieving a particular objective, that is also fine, right? So in devising this strategy, we have this rational planning model, or we call it the RPM, where you initially set the mission and you decide the objectives for the firm. And then you do something called as position audit, where you look at your internal, external, and stakeholder aspects. So to look at your internal aspects, you can look at the strengths and weaknesses. External, you can look at the opportunities and threats along with pestle factors, and also your stakeholders. To what extent are they happy with you or otherwise? So once the position audit is done, you generate strategic options. You come up with multiple options that will help you to achieve your objectives and then achieve your mission. Now, all the options that you generate, you can't implement. So we need to choose one. That's what this choice is all about. So how do we choose? Based on three criteria: suitability, acceptability, and feasibility. Suitability is about whether a chosen option is in line with the company's values, policies, etc. Acceptability is whether a chosen option will be liked by my stakeholders. Is it in line with my past strategies? And feasibility, do I have sufficient resources to carry out the chosen option? And when you say resources, you would look at four types of resources, which are financial, physical, human resource, and your intangible resources, which are your brand name, information, etc. So once the suitability, feasibility, and acceptability criteria is carried out, you will choose an option and you will implement with budgets and timelines, etc. And periodically you must review as to how you are performing and then control your activities. So that is where your variance report, control reports all come into play. So this is a lengthy approach to strategic planning, which we call as rational planning approach. And planning happens at all three levels of an organization. So corporate level is about long-term planning, normally more than 5 years. It's about deciding where the company should be in the long term. Business level, it's about tactical planning, which happens at the functional level or SBU level. And then functional or operational, mostly like monthly or day-to-day. And the key point is all three layers should work together so that they achieve the ultimate objective of the organization, which is known as the goal congruence. No layer should work on their own, rather they should work on one single plan. Right now, Johnson, Coles and Whittington put the longer version of strategic planning into a three-stage model, and they call it strategic analysis, choice, and action. Strategic analysis stage is about deciding the mission and doing position audit. That is strategic analysis. What the company wants to achieve and where are they now. Strategic choice is about generating options and choosing the most suitable one. That is strategic choice. And finally, implementation and review. That is strategy into action. Pretty much same model, but more shorter version. Right, strategic drift. Now, if you look at companies, some of them, they fail to keep up with the changes in the environment. Now, if you see the top curve, that is the environment curve, the movement in the environment. And the bottom one is to what extent the company is keeping up with the environmental changes. A company will formulate strategy and they will start implementing. So for example, let's say you designed the strategy and you have finished work end of December. You are starting your operations in January. So according to your strategy, you are functioning or you have started in Jan. So phase one will go according to the environment because that's what you have planned based on your environmental forecast, numbers, etc. And this also means you are getting used to what you have been doing. You are not trying out new things, but you are sticking to old ways of doing things. So you're getting used to the same thing every day. Now the environment is starting to move away. We know that environment is never constant, it's highly dynamic. But to what extent will depend on different areas. For instance, the changes that happen in, for example, New York is different to what happens in Singapore or in another, Asian country, depending on how developed they are and, various other factors that affect them. But whatever, due to technological and other impacts, environment will definitely move, meaning it keeps on changing. So after some time, when the environment starts to move away, the management is not keeping up. That's what this curve shows. Why is that the management not keeping up? Is because they believe in old ways of doing things. Last year, this happened and this worked for us. Therefore, this year also it will work for us. They get into that notion. So now what's happening is they are staying away. They are moving away. This is the drifting part. You're not keeping up, you're drifting. So phase two, a little drift is okay. You can survive. You can survive. No major harm. There is an impact, but no major harm. But phase three, you have moved away a lot. Right? Customer wants fast food, but you're still sticking to healthy, long cooked meals, thinking that that's what the customer wants. Right? So that's what this shows. And that phase we call it the flux. So we are very much away from the environment. So like I said, for example, customer wants A, but you are still delivering B. Now you are so much away, you have only two options now. Either shut down, we call it the demise, or you need to do a massive change and catch up to the environment. This massive change is known as transformational change. A worm becomes a butterfly. transformational change. So you've been delivering, or you have a restaurant that provides healthy food, takes time to cook, carefully selected ingredients, etc. But that's not what your clientele wants now. They want fast food. They want to eat as they order. They don't want to, stay for 20 minutes, 25 minutes. So now you need to change everything in your organization, from the chef to the equipments, training to your staff. So it's a massive change, massive jump, I would say. Why? To catch up with what's happening in the environment. Because if you don't deliver according to what your clientele or customer wants, then it's demise. We cannot survive. Most of the companies get caught to this trap known as a strategic drift. You can think of an example like Kodak. What happened to Kodak? Nokia. Kodak, they were the first to come up with digital cameras, but they delayed, production and marketing. So that gave them a massive hit, even though they are still in the market. Similarly, Nokia, failed to keep up with smartphone requirements plus customer requirements, etc. So it's about constant scanning of the environment and keeping up with them, and coming out of the mindset that what worked for you in the past will work for you in the future. No. And in today's environment, the rate of change is very high. So the amount of scanning that you need to do also is quite high, so that we can avoid drift. And that's where your ability and your willingness to adopt change should be high. Right, moving on. Strategic analysis. We will look at first PESTLE. I don't think I need to spend much time here because all of you know what this model is. But one thing you must remember, if a question tells you to evaluate or analyze the macro environment, that is the overall environment, you will use PESTLE analysis. But if the question tells you to analyze the competitive environment or the micro environment, you will use 5 forces. Right? If it is macro or overall environment, we will use PESTLE analysis. If it is competitive or micro environment surrounding, then you will use the 5 forces model. So PESTLE looks at political, economic factors, social, the cultural impacts, and then technology, how technology impacts a company's performance, then environmental factors, bring in ecological as well, and then finally legal factors. So as an organization, you must be conducive and also scan from these 6 angles as to how you are performing. And one more thing I would like to tell you as to why these models are important. See, if your boss tells you identify factors that are affecting your company, you will start shooting in all directions. There is no scope. Boss tells you identify factors that are affecting the company. Now, there will be million factors in the environment, and it's very, very difficult to identify. But the moment we have a model or a tool such as PESTLE, now you know how to bring a framework or what kind of a scope you bring in. So that's the advantage of a model. So it makes our life easy rather than shooting in all directions. Then we have 5 forces model, which is used to identify the industry attractiveness. And Porter, by industry attractiveness, he means the profitability, the ability of the firm to make profits. So Porter said, you look at the 5 forces and then decide whether it's worth entering a particular industry. So for example, buyer power, power of buyers or bargaining power of customers, we call it. If the buyer power is high, meaning customer will to an extent can decide how much he or she pays, meaning company can't make much money, then the profitability is less. Then you have threat of new entrants, meaning the chance of new people coming in to the industry, new competitors coming into the industry. So that will depend on barriers to entry. For example, if the initial investment is high, then the chance of new people coming in is less, meaning existing players can make money. But if the entry is easy, then a lot of people, a lot of competitors will start coming in. The chance for you to make money is less. Similarly, threat of substitutes, products from another industry that can give you the same satisfaction, utility. And then bargaining power of, okay, this should be suppliers, customers we already have. If the supplier has more power, then he will dictate price, meaning our input cost will be high, margins will not be great, right? Similarly, competitive rivalry, how bad or how competitive the industry is it relaxed competition or is it cutthroat competition? If the competition is relaxed, then you can make money, but if there's cutthroat competition, it's very difficult. So the point is, if the strength of the forces are strong, then the chance for you to make money is less, the ability to make profits is less. But if the strength of the forces are weak, then the chance for you to make money is more, ability to make money is high. So an industry is attractive when the forces are weak. So a company should invest in an industry where the forces are weak. So that's what the five forces model is. And like I said, PESTLE is for macro, five forces is for micro or competitive environment. Diamond. Right now, this model, Porto is asking this question: why are certain countries more stronger than others? So he used this model to explain that. Because those countries have four key elements. One is factor conditions. They have this, land, labor, raw materials, things that you need to start a business, manufacture a product, right? And then demand conditions, the aggregate demand, spending power, and then related and supporting industries. See, if you are a education establishment, you need the support of a bank, you need the support of insurance company. So those are what related and supporting industries are. We as a company, we can't operate alone, we need other industries as well to function. And then strategy, structure, and rivalry. How are the existing guys competing? What kind of structure are they following? How can you form a company? So when a country is strong in these areas, then that country has an advantage over other countries. So apart from these four, Porter also talks about two elements in the diamond model. One is government grants, that is government allowing you to, providing you with grants to operate. Also chance events, that is you have access to a natural resource. For example, if you take Middle East, okay, there's oil, so then you make money out of it and then you become rich. So those are known as chance events. or you have access to some kind of a natural resource or environmental factors which works in your favor. So apart from these factors, government grants and chance events will also make a country stronger than other countries. And then we have capabilities. That is, if you look at resources and competences, there are two types. One is basic resource, which is something that you have as the same as a competitor. You must have. Or competences which are known as threshold. Threshold means minimum. With basic and threshold resource and competence, you can't build a successful business. You can have an average business, minimum. But if you want to be successful, you must have something different and difficult to copy. A resource that is different and difficult to copy, or a competence that is different and difficult to copy. So if it's a resource that is different to competition, then you call it a unique resource. Only you have and no one else has access to. And that gives you an advantage. And a competence that is different or difficult to copy, then we call it core. So that's where this core competence is all about. So for a business to be successful and to lead the market, they must have resources that are unique and also competences that are core, meaning others should not have. So it's about building this, working towards achieving this. That makes you a successful organization. I have a question here that says, is it for external environmental analysis? It's not clear. If you can type the full question, it's better. Thanks. Right, critical success factors are like key factors that are important for you to become successful. For example, if you are a fast food outlet, speed of delivery is important. You can't keep your customers waiting for 15-20 minutes in the queue. They come and tell you, okay, I want a burger, right, 2 minutes you need to deliver. So your ability to provide that's a success factor or a critical success factor. Performance requirements that are fundamental to an organization's success. Right, and critical success factors should be derived based on your mission. They do not exist in isolation. If you, for example, if you want to become the #1 fast food retailer in your country, then to be that #1 fast food retailer, you must decide certain critical success factors, such as quality, product quality, delivery, and customer satisfaction. So for these critical success factors, then you decide your key performance indicators. We call it performance measures. So mission leads to critical success factors, and critical success factors are measured through your KPIs. They do not exist in isolation. So when you measure your KPIs, you will understand whether you are achieving your CSF. And if your CSFs are in place, achieved, you will achieve your mission. And this is where critical success factors are the areas where the organization must outperform competition. So CSF versus competences, you must know the difference between the two. CFs are what an organizations need to be good at, things that you must be good at. But competences focus on what an organization is good at. Right? This is what you have but this is what you need to be. You know to make fast food, but then you should be good in delivering it faster as well. Both should be there, not one. So strategies need to focus on maximizing the correlation between the two. So like I said, you know how to make fast food, good, tasty fast food. But if your delivery is a failure, then it will not work. So ability to deliver fast, provide a superior service. That's where your CSF is, critical success factors. Right, value chain is again another Porter's model that looks at the business integration, or how an organizational functions or different departments are connected. We break it into two. One is the bottom part, the 5 areas you see is known as the primary activities. That is a must-have for any manufacturing organization. And then which is supported by support activities. So some textbooks will call it as secondary activities. So inbound logistics is your raw material purchasing, transport inwards, warehousing, all that is known as inbound logistics. Operations is basically your manufacturing, production. Then once the production is done, again, your lorries, your finished goods, your warehouses. And then customers don't know about your product, so you need to now do marketing and sales. And then finally, after sales service. If there are problems in your product, customers will bring it back to you. So you need to repair or service it and give it back to them. So that's what the service part is. And to do these primary activities, you need a firm infrastructure. That is your organizational setup. Your administration, your legal department, your finance department, your reception, the whole infrastructure. And then IT to connect the whole organization. HR to recruit, deciding on various HR policies, etc. for the whole organization, and also procurement for the whole company, basically purchasing. Now, value chain is about creating value to. Now, this area you will see, if you look at the book, you will see this area is named as the margin. Why is that? Listen carefully. This whole area, that is your primary activities and support activities, is a cost for the company. You incur cost here. So if this whole area is cost, and if this is margin, why is this margin? Is if you have a selling price in this area, minus cost is your margin. So how do we decide the selling price? So, okay, no brainer, selling price should be higher than the cost. So selling price minus cost is margin. But how do you decide will depend on the type of value you provide. If you provide a low cost product, then your selling price will be low. But Porter says to provide a low cost product, make your value chain activities economical. In the sense, have a basic infrastructure. Spend much on technology. Don't hire skilled employees because you will end up paying more. Right? So basically all your value chain activities need to be economical. Then you can have a low cost product. And then your selling price also can be low because your cost is really low, you make a better margin. Similarly, if you want to provide a differentiated product, now all these have to be done differently, meaning your cost of production is expensive or more. Then you can charge a higher price. So then selling price, again, cost, minus cost, you get a margin. I will get back to this later once I do generic strategies, that is cost leadership, differentiation, etc. But remember that value chain again does not exist in isolation. Value chain activities need to be aligned according to the strategy of the organization. Right? You don't just make sure that all this is there in your company, but there is a way to structure this. That's the whole idea. SWOT analysis, okay, it looks at the strength and weakness internally. Strengths are things that the company is good at or have an advantage of. Weaknesses are things that can kill the company if you don't do something about it. Opportunities, things that the companies can exploit using their strengths. And threats, companies, things that the company is vulnerable to. The point is you use your strengths to capture the opportunity. We call it matching strategies. You use your strengths to capture the opportunities. We call it the matching strategies. Similarly, weaknesses, you must convert them to strengths. If not, it can kill your company. You have a lazy or incompetent workforce. That's a weakness. If you don't do anything about it, they will not do any good. So you must give them training, motivation, rewards, make them efficient employees. Or then they become a strength and it's good for the company. So that's what you mean by converting weakness into strengths, conversion strategies. And then threats. You have to either reduce the impact of these threats or you get rid of them, eliminate them. For example, you see a small competitor coming up. Buy the competitor, shut it down, meaning you are eliminating them. Or buy the competitor, and rebrand, put your brand name. If you can't eliminate, you must at least try to reduce their impact. Have attack strategies in place so that they cannot creep into your market share. So SWOT analysis is not about just listing down what are the strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats. It's about what you do after. That's what's more important. So once you identify your strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats, you must have conversion strategies, matching strategies, and then eliminate or reduce impact for the threats. Right, performance analysis. We have quantitative analysis, basically analyzing financial statements and tables if provided. Basically, using ratios that you learn in if reporting. And then examine, expect students to do this even if not explicitly told to do so. If a question is talking about profitability, you must understand that to make your point, you must bring in certain profitability related ratios, numbers. So examiner will not explicitly say that. So you as a candidate should know to bring that into your answer. By calculating some key ratios such as revenue growth, margins, and of course, gearing, etc. Benchmarking is about comparing performance to improve performance. that is comparing our company performance with another party. So it can be, there are different types of benchmarking. We can call it internal benchmarking. That is, within the same company, you compare different branches. That is internal. Or competitive benchmarking. McDonald's comparing themselves with KFC. So that is competitive benchmarking. Or best in class. If I ask you whether Pizza Hut can compare themselves with DHL, you will wonder for a minute. Two different companies in two different industries. Yes, they can. They can compare one aspect of their business, that is the delivery process. So sometimes we call it process benchmarking. Right? How are they doing it? So if for example Pizza Hut is doing it well, DHL can check. But there are certain challenges in benchmarking, like it's difficult to obtain data, and you don't like to be compared. So there is demotivational impacts, and what you do is relevant for you, and what your competitor does is not relevant for you. I mean, he is doing it better because his market or the requirement is such, and your customers don't need it. So benchmarking has its negatives, but the main advantage is that it helps you to identify areas to improve your performance. Also, it can motivate, okay, by finding out new ways of doing things to perform better in the environment. Okay, there is a question, what is the difference between internal and best in class benchmark? So internal is, like I told you, between company branches. Say for example, you have a branch, okay, let's say Unilever Pakistan versus Unilever Hindustan or India or whatever, or Sri Lanka, right? So that's internal within your company. So best in class, like I said, a process that's in two different industries. Okay. Right, Baldrige Performance Excellence. This is a model from US. When a lot of companies started to, when they were not performing better, this model was introduced as a performance improvement tool, which focused on leadership, strategic planning, and then customer and market focus. How do you deliver what the customer wants? Then workforce, there is your HR, and the process management, the whole from start to end the processes, and of course the results. And the whole framework was based on measurement, KPIs, analysis, and KM, that is knowledge management. So this was to improve organizational performance, and that's Baldrige Performance Excellence model. Right, now we move to strategic choice. that is developing choice and choosing the most suitable one. So we have the first model, that is generic strategies. There are three generic strategies model. One is cost leadership, the other one is differentiation, and then the third one is focus. Now, cost leadership, that is being the lowest cost manufacturer in an industry. For example, let's say you are manufacturing pens, and there are 5 pen manufacturers in your industry. And if your cost of pen is the lowest, then you can charge the lowest selling price. So Porter says that gives you an advantage to be the cost leader. Cost leader meaning your cost of production is the lowest. So now remember value chain. All your value chain activities need to be economical, meaning lower than your competition. Then you can easily become a cost leader. For example, your inbound logistics, your raw materials. Buy from suppliers who can give you the lowest cost. Outbound logistics. Use delivery vehicles which will cost you the lowest. Marketing and sales. Don't spend a lot on branding, because if you start spending a lot on branding, then your cost will increase. Then you can't become a cost leader. So that's what I told you earlier. Align the value chain activities according to your strategy. So if you want to become a cost leader, all the elements or activities in the value chain need to be economical, meaning cheaper than or lowest in cost compared to a competition. Differentiation. Differentiation is about doing something different or doing the same thing in a different way. Porter says if you differentiate, you can charge a higher price, meaning a premium price. But for you to differentiate, you need to incur cost. If you want to give something different to a customer, then you need to incur cost. But that's fine because you can charge a premium. So that's where you make more money. For example, an air-conditioned restaurant with nice ambience, properly dressed waiters, people to serve food. So you are providing more than the minimum, and you are trying to create a difference. This element will help you to charge a premium price. So cost leadership, low cost, lower selling price, meaning you are focusing on volume business. You need to sell a lot of units to make money. Whereas differentiation, high cost, but you can charge a higher price, premium price. So you're looking at value business. Right now, these two options, strategies, that is cost leadership or differentiation, can be used in a broader market or in a narrow market. For example, whole of country A, we are deploying differentiation. Then that is known as broad differentiation strategy. If only in one part of the country we are deploying differentiation, then that is called a niche strategy or a focus strategy. So focus is not another strategy on its own, but it's about the scope or the area of operation. If you choose a strategy for 100% of the area, then that is broad. If you choose for a particular area within that 100%, then that is known as a focus strategy, right? Organizations will go for focus strategy when they don't have much resources to do that, right? So if you look at brands like Nike, Adidas, they go for broad differentiation. But if you look at Ferrari or Harley Davidson, they go for narrow differentiation. That is Ferrari, sports loving people who love speed, people who can spend some more money on a car. So broad market is broad differentiation, narrow market is focused differentiation. Right, strategy clock. This looks at what you charge as price and the perceived benefit by the customer. For example, the position number 1, no frills, you are charging a very low price and the customer is also getting a very low value, and the strategy will work. If you offer a low value product at a very low price, customers will buy that. So that is one position to operate. Similarly, position number 2, you are giving a bit more value, but you are charging a low price. Definitely customers will buy. You're charging a lower price but giving a higher value, and that position will also work. Position number 3, hybrid. Higher value but you are charging a higher price. It will work. Position number 4, differentiation. Quite a higher price but a differentiated product. It will work. Position number 5, very high price, right? Very high price, very high value, focus differentiation. Like I said, Ferrari and Harley Davidson, yes, that will also work. But look at position number 6, 7, and 8. We are charging very high price, especially at 6 and 7. But the value we offer is very less. No one is going to buy. If you position a product in that area, it will fail. For example, you're giving second-hand cars for the price of new cars. No one is going to buy. If you give second-hand cars for the price of new cars, no one is going to buy. So when you position a product in the market, you must be careful as to where you position it. And it should depend on the value you provide or the value that the customer perceives to be deriving. But one instance where 6 or 7 can work is when the customer is addicted to a particular product or service. For example, tobacco or alcohol. And it will work because at any price or like up to any given price they will still consume. And if they are a monopoly and then there's no competition, then 6 or 7 is an ideal position. You don't have competition and people are okay, your base is addicted to your product, then it will work. But on a normal case, it's highly unlikely. And if you position at 6, 7, or 8, it's a failure. Right, sustaining competitive advantage. Competitive advantage is something that you have, which the competitive companies do not have. And for you to become a success, you must work on your competitive advantage or work on gaining competitive advantage. Now, the capabilities needed to sustain competitive advantages are value. That is, the value that you provide should be more than the value that the competition provides. That is one way to sustain. Let's say you are providing a mobile service, for example, mobile, airtime, SIM. There'll be, enough. Other competitors will also be providing the same, a SIM card, ability to make calls, airtime. But if your customer service is better, then your subscribers will value that. If you take time to answer their calls, listen to their queries, give them solution on time, then it will be highly valued and your customers will stick with you. But if you don't do that, they will switch. Similarly, another option to sustain your advantages based on uniqueness, or we call it the rarity of strategic capabilities. If what you provide is unique and the competition cannot imitate, then you can still sustain your advantage, right? So that is your uniqueness. And third one, robustness, meaning how strong or how last long your product or service. So based on these elements, you can sustain a competitive advantage. Other ways to gain competitive advantage: innovation. You must constantly innovate. There is no end to innovation. It must be continuous. Right, so by the time the competition catch up, the innovator has built up brand loyalty and defendable position, and then you constantly give new things to your customers. Similarly, another element is knowledge management. It's about capturing knowledge, sharing it with your employees so that their competencies improve, right? And this encourages innovation and sharing, and it reduces complexity. It also ensures continuity as staff turnover reduces. Right, another model for organizational growth is Ansoff market and product matrix. For you to perform better with your existing products in your existing market, you need to do something called as penetration. Penetration is about reducing the price, providing discounts. So what happens is your existing customers will start to buy more, and then your volumes increase. So that's what market penetration is all about. You take your existing products and you go to market. You try to sell it to new customers. That we call it market development. Take your existing products and go and sell it to new customers. That we call it market development. Similarly, to your existing customers, you sell new products. That is known as product development. To your existing customers, you sell your new products. So that is called product development. Or the fourth option is you diversify. Now, diversification, there are two types. One is related diversification, and the other is unrelated diversification. Related diversification is you diversifying in pretty much the same industry or same line of business. For example, you have an ACCA college, that teaches ACCA. So you start a school. So that can be considered related diversification. You have an ACCA college, but you go and start a cement manufacturing plant. That becomes unrelated diversification. Totally something new. Now, market penetration is a very, less risky option. You're playing with your existing products and existing market customers. But between these two, that is product development, market development, the most riskiest is market development, because you are trying to gain new customers, and that's not easy. It's relatively easy for you to sell new products to your existing customers because you have already built up a rapport with them. The trust is built. So you go and give them something new, they'll take it. But this is taking your existing products to new customers. That needs a lot of convincing. So that's more riskier. But in diversification, unrelated has the highest amount of risk. So these are options for you to grow, right? This is known as the ANSOF product market matrix. Right, so diversification, okay, we have a few more, that is forward vertical, backward, horizontal, and unrelated diversification. Unrelated, I already told you. Forward vertical is basically a manufacturer merging with a distributor. Manufacturer merging with a distributor. That is forward vertical. If the manufacturer goes and merges with a supplier, then we call it backward. And then horizontal, a cement manufacturer merging with another cement manufacturer. So there you have the advantages of economies of scale. Scale improves. So unrelated is totally something else. All these diversification forms have its own advantages and disadvantages. It's about managing them. Right, strategy valuation, like I already mentioned to you before, every option should go through these three tests: suitability test, acceptability, and feasibility. So suitability looks at whether a chosen option is in line with the company's values, policies, right, their beliefs. And acceptability looks at whether the stakeholders like it, whether it's in line with what they've been doing in the past, will the employees like it, shareholders, etc. And feasibility, whether the company has sufficient resources to carry out the chosen task or the option. So methods of strategic development, we can look at implementing growth and assessing business units. So you can look at organic growth. That is, you grow internally, you save money, or like you use your own retained profits, and then you invest it back to expand your business. So you need to look at whether it is easier to control. Also can be risky if not enough skills or experience. Okay, you have money, but expanding business is about your ability to do things. So if you don't have the skills or experience or expertise, then it can put you in trouble. The resources or the money will end up being wasted. And organic growth is quite slow but stable, a less risky option. Another option is mergers or acquisitions. It's a quick way of growing, where you merge with another company or you buy another company, and that's where you have synergy. And it's about transferring skills and sharing your activities. So this is a faster way of growing, but a key challenge is that the matching of cultures between the two entities. Most of the time, mergers or acquisitions become a failure, uh, not because they don't have a fit between their products or services, but because of the management. The management of the two new companies, they don't work together because of the differences in culture, the work ethics and methods, etc. So further models, joint venture, that is where two companies come together for a common objective, but both have 50-50. So they form a new entity with 50-50 ownership, and it can be for a limited time period, and they will share resources to achieve their common objective. Strategic alliance, companies come together for a mutual benefit. One company has products, another company has, let's say, showrooms. So these two companies can come together. The company that has the products can give the products to the company with the showrooms. So the company with the showroom has access to products now. So they both gain. They can share the margins. Or one company has a land with oil. The other company has the technology and resources to extract oil. So they come together for a mutual benefit. Franchise licensing or agency, minor differences. It's where you give the right to use your brand name or product knowledge, something like how McDonald's and KFC, Pizza Hut work, worldwide. So different organizational forms for growth. Right, so I will stop here for a 10-minute break. So I will see you back exactly in 10 minutes. Thank you. Hi, welcome back. I hope all of you can hear me well. I would take up these questions before I move on. Mm, yeah, there is a question on may you please explain value? I think it's value only and not value chain. Value is basically the company's value, I mean, what the company uh, provides through the product. All right, if you take a business, they provide a product or service, but the customer is not buying the product or service per se. They are buying the product or service for a reason, that is to derive a value, meaning they are buying the product or service to derive a benefit. It's the benefit that is what a value is. For example, why would you buy a vehicle? For example, a car. You can use the public transport, but why are you buying a car? By buying a car, you are buying the value of convenience, comfort. That is your ability to travel whenever you want, wherever you want, and with certain comfort that the vehicle gives you. So you buy a Volvo, you're buying the benefit of safety apart from other things. You buy a Ferrari, you buy the benefit of speed, that other cars cannot give. Or you buy a Mercedes or BMW, or you buy the value of prestige. So value um, differs product to product, company to company, based on what they provide. So it's about, I mean, if you talk about McDonald's, the value is fast food on the way you pick it up, right? And so the price we pay is for the value that the company provides. A low value car, the value you derive is the use value. You're not deriving the value of speed, you're not deriving the value of safety, but you're just deriving the value of usage, where the car gets you from point A to point B. So that's what a low value car provides. But let's say you buy a BMW or a Mercedes or a Volvo, you're buying esteem value, that is the value of esteem, the benefit of esteem. You're buying safety value, the benefit of safety. You're buying technology, the car will have lots and lots of features. So value um, will differ company to company and product to product. Similarly, if you buy a mobile phone, you're buying the value of convenience, your ability to make a call from wherever you are to whomever you want to, and your ability to take pictures. Every mobile phone now, smartphone comes with high-end cameras, so you don't have to buy a separate camera. You already have it. So the benefit of taking pictures. So that's what value is. I hope I answered your question. And then I said, could you give an example of robustness of strategic capabilities as part of sustaining competitive advantage? Yeah, good question. I would like you to think of Apple and Samsung. It's a very interesting. It's two products, two companies. If you look at Apple phones, smartphones, and Samsung, Apple is always expensive And even the second-hand market for Apple products is still expensive. But how about Samsung and any other branded smartphones? At the initial stage, it's very expensive, but the drop in price is quite huge. Why do you think this is happening? And I'm sure there are fans for Apple and Samsung products among you as well. But you know who is leading in technology? The latest technology, who is carrying it? Is it Apple or Samsung? But who is expensive? So Apple, their value proposition is robustness, meaning strong hardware. Right? You would still see someone using a 5C from Apple, whereas many other brands, the old models, the versions, cease to exist. So Apple's one key value proposition or strategic capabilities, hardware. You buy an Apple phone, you can use it for a long period. So that is one way of sustaining. So you as a customer of Apple, you trust the brand because it stays with you for a longer period. So your need to change phones is very much less. So that's one way to sustain your advantage. Are we going to discuss exam questions or is it just about technical knowledge? We will definitely discuss exam questions and we will do 2 papers on the last 2 days. Is there no. Please share a question. Yes, I will do in a while. Yeah, so I'll move to the slides now. Right, so this is BCG matrix, that is Boston's consultancy group matrix. I'm sure most of you know, but then still let's go through it in detail. When a company has a portfolio of products, that is multiple products, then they should know how to manage. In the sense, few products, let's say 3 products, can give them 80% of their revenue. And then the balance 7 products can give them the rest of the revenue, that is 20% of the revenue. So how do we look after them? And in which life cycle are they? What kind of strategies do you deploy? So BCG says it depends on 2 aspects. One is the relative market share and the market growth rate, right? So you can look at it as high and low. So this +1, you can take it as high, and the -1, you can take it as low, and less than 10 is low, and more than 10 is high. So when the market growth rate is high, and if your market share is also high, you call that product a star product. Meaning it's a top performing product. It's number 1 in the market. It gives you a lot of money. But to keep it in that position, you need to spend a lot as well. Right? Top brands, they still advertise because retaining that position is not easy. So star products need a lot of investment. They will give you money, but then you need to put it back. So high market share and high market growth products are star products. Then you have this quadrant where the market share is high, but the market is not growing. Or in the product life cycle, the product has reached the maturity stage. These are known as cash cows, right? So you are like the market leader, but the market is not growing. Now, these products will give you a lot of money, and you should not invest much. Probably because it's at the end of the life cycle, it's at the maturity or saturation stage and it's going to die. No point investing. Or it has reached the stage where most of the customers buy your product, so you don't need to convince them anymore. So you reap the benefits. So that's this quadrant, cash cow quadrant. And this quadrant, where you see a small puppy, market share is low and the market growth is also low. We call it the dog. Those products are known as dog. So what do you do now? The market is also not growing for the product, and the market share is also low. So what do you do with these kind of products? Right, so the products that are in this quadrant, that is the dog quadrant, the market share is low, and if the market is not growing, you rather get rid of them. Don't waste your time there. Right, the market share is also low, market is also not growing, so it's a waste of time. You rather put effort into some other areas. And you have this quadrant where you see a small child. If you see the market is growing, but your share is low, so that's a problem. So we call it problem child. Some textbooks will have a question mark, right? So market is growing, but your share is very low, meaning you're not doing that which needs to be done. So there is some problem. So I will give you 3 words now. I hope you can take it down. 1, invest. 2, harvest. And 3, divest. Invest, harvest, and divest. So take a minute and decide in which quadrant you will write these words. That is invest, harvest, and divest. Right, I get a lot of correct answers, so that's good. You must harvest from cash cow, that is, take as much money as possible, use that money and try to invest it on the problem child. Because if the market is growing, you should do something to gain market share. Meaning, this product should move here. That means a problem child should become a star. And in a star, you must invest to keep or retain in that position, like I said before. And this one, the dog, you divest. In a case, dogs can take turn, like market can grow and you can do something right, but it's quite unlikely. So normally dogs are divested and that resource is put somewhere else, mainly to problem child. You must know to match a BCG matrix with product life cycle, right? Like when you introduce a product, it will not do good, so it can be dog stage. And when it grows, it can be a problem child. Then after some time, it matures or it's even performs really well, and then finally again it comes back to the dog position, because it can die. But one thing I would like to highlight is that when a product reaches maturity stage, market growth is low and the market share is high. After the maturity stage, the next stage is the decline stage. So according to the PLC, after maturity, the product is going to die. If it is definite that the product is going to die, then even before the product dies, you must introduce another product so that the business can be sustained. Because when the product dies, there's no revenue. So before the existing product dies, you must introduce another product. So when the first product dies, the second one gives you cash flow to sustain the business. If not, when the product has reached the maturity stage and just before it starts to die, you do product modification to prolong the life of the product. Take for example a toothpaste. Initially, you will have a generic toothpaste. So you introduce, product is doing good, market grows, and now the market is matured. Now your particular toothpaste brand is going to die. What you can do is, in terms of product modification, you can introduce a healthy version of that. Maybe a white color toothpaste with a green stripe. And another variety for the kids. So now your product is going to sustain, live for long. That's what you mean by prolong the life of the product. So the curve gets extended. That's what you see with most of the companies in real life. Mainly, FMCG products, where they introduce varieties, new flavors, different sizes, different customer segments, or within the key same group. So different ways of prolonging, because the amount of money that you invest initially is quite high. So if the length of the life cycle is long, the ROI can be higher rather than investing in a new product altogether. So BCG is a very useful tool to decide the way forward on your products. I hope the slide moving part is now okay. Right, we can apply BCG to public sector as well, but the axes are different. One is value for money, and the other one is public need and funding effectiveness. Value for money is basically looking at the three E's: economy, efficiency, and effectiveness. So when both are high, we call it public sector star. That people need is high, that is value for, public need is high. Plus what the state sector is providing in terms of efficiency, effectiveness, economy is also high. So then you call it public sector star. For example, let's say transportation. If the state sector is providing good transportation services, on time transportation, convenient, comfortable, hygiene, then you call it public sector star. So because the value for money is high. If both are low, then you call it backrow issues, right? Public need and funding effectiveness is low. People don't need it much, and then value for money is also low. So then backrow issues. And then this quadrant, need is high, but value for money is low. So that is political hot box. That's an issue. And then need is low, but the value for money is high. Golden fleece. So this is similar to BCG applied to state sector. Right. So for today's session, I would go up to that slide and would take up any questions if you have. Right. Political hotbox. Someone wants me to explain it a bit more. Public need and funding effectiveness is high. That is, let's say, health sector in any country, the health requirement is quite high. So public need. But what the government provides or what the state sector provides in terms of health service is low. So then it's an issue, right? Because the need of the people are not met properly or up to the requirement. Right now, do we use this? Do we use the same criteria of invest, harvest, divest for public sector also? No, public sector understand this point that it is not profit-oriented area, right? State sector, they don't provide services with the objective of making money. But something that is a star, you maintain it. When the public needs it, the political hotbox should move here, right? Golden fleece should not be there because public need is low. Backrow issue should get out. Yeah, this is a good question. How I will come to know what or which matrix or model is to be applied to answer the question. Yeah, so those I will answer when we do the model papers on Thursday and Friday. So what about golden freeze? Okay, market growth is measured as yearly growth. How do we measure market share? Your share as a percentage of the whole market plus one is high and minus one is low. Right, in today's resources handouts, um, there are five. One is the intro, then the other one is technical slides, three is SBL examiner approach, five communication. I would like you to take about 10 minutes and read the question that is provided here, named as strategic drift. So I will pause for now and start in another 10 minutes. So I would like you to read the question thoroughly for the next 10 minutes. Hi guys, I would like to take up certain questions while the others read what I have uploaded on strategic drift. Yeah, what can be an example for golden fleece? Right now, golden fleece is where something that is effective, but the public believe that it is overfunded, and the strategy should be to move funds to other services, and and reduce money that is put on this golden fleece quadrant. So a good example would be, let's say, a children's park, and it's more too extravagant, too many safety measures, too much of play area, right? So it's not useful for the general public, so that can be considered golden fleece. I mean, things that public don't need it much, but state sector starts spending a lot on those. Could you kindly explain political hotbox again? Yeah, it's political hotbox is where the public need is quite high. I mean, it's very popular among public. Let's say something like basic transportation need, but the value for money is very low, so it puts a lot of drain on funding, and that money can be used elsewhere if you're efficient enough. So, for example, let's say you have a train service, and then you are using very old trains. So what happens is the wastage will be high. Fuel cost will be high. You need more labor to support the whole operation. So if you have, for example, new trains, you're saving on fuel and less machine and material needed. So those resources can be put elsewhere. So that's what a political hotbox is. While evaluating strategic position, how are we to identify weakness and threat? Right. So there's another question. While evaluating strategic position, that is the audit, position audit, how are we to identify weakness and threat? So it's a good question. How do you know what's your weakness and the threats are? You can do a comparative analysis, right? So now we know, like, Apple has a market cap which is quite higher. So a competitor can compare to see where they are not performing well in terms of Apple's value propositions, and the variables that are giving them success. So that is one way to identify the weakness and threats. So you need to compare within your industry participants. If you look at only yourself, you will not know what your weaknesses are. So it's always about comparing yourself with the industry participants. And one key thing for SBL is that you must look at all these models from a practical angle. It's not about knowing BCG or and SOF or whatever. It's about how do we apply it in real life. Because when you go back to your office, you're not going to talk theory. You're going to talk about how do you use this to gain or win competition, overcome your weaknesses, right? So it's about application rather than theoretical knowledge. Right, so I would like to discuss the question now. Um, this is the most important part in SBL, where you identify, understand how to apply a particular technical model, right? A theoretical model to a scenario, and then how do we answer this, the structure and the content, etc. Now, in SBL exam, you will get about 12 to 15 pages of a company scenario. So it's important that you read it and then you understand it, because you can't keep on reading it again and again. You will end up wasting time. So it's about reading and then understanding at once. Like running or swimming, this is also a skill, that is, ability to read a little faster and then understand as you read. Remember, you don't have much time, right? Normally in the 4 hour period, we say use the first 40 minutes to read and understand the scenario. So that is not a lot of time to read and understand, about 15 pages of a case. So it's a skill that you need to master or develop, right? Okay, so when it comes to this question, that is TMZ, let's look at the requirement first. I hope all of you can see the screen. Thank you for the answers. Right. Now, requirement, the CEO of TMZ is concerned by the past strategic drift of the company. He wants to learn from the organization's past mistakes. So this is a very direct question. So someone has asked, how do we know what model to apply? So when you read something like this, okay, this question is coming from the strategic drift area, right? But there are certain questions where it is quite unclear, but I will give you guidance as to how to identify what model to use and how to apply them. So here we would directly use the strategic drift model to answer. So the CEO of TMZ is concerned by the past strategic drift of the company. He wants to learn from the organization's past mistakes. Analyze the performance of TMZ from 1965 to present, that is from birth to now, including any evidence of past strategic drift. So it's a bit of work. 15 marks, it's a bit of work. So we need to analyze. So that is the verb in the question. And also the second part, provide evidence of strategic drift. Where did they start to drift and what happened? Now, this is the most important part. I mean, another key part of the whole answer. Professional skills marks will be awarded for demonstrating analytical skills in considering the causes of the strategic drift. Now, this is what the container is, what I mentioned to you earlier. So, strategic drift from the container of analysis skills or analytical skills. There's nothing extra for you to write here to get the 2 marks, but it's the way in which you write that you will get the 2 marks, right? I would like to take you back to the slide that talks about what analysis is all about. I hope all of you can see this slide. Analysis is investigate, inquire, and consider. Investigate relevant information from a wide range of sources, using a variety of analytical techniques to establish the reasons and causes of problems or to identify opportunities or solutions. To establish the reasons and causes of problems. What happened? Why is it so? So investigation. Inquire. of individuals who analyze appropriate data sources to obtain suitable evidence to corroborate or dispute existing beliefs or opinion and come to appropriate conclusion. And also consider information, evidence and findings carefully, reflecting on their implications and how they can be used in the interest of the department and wider organizational goals. So analysis is like a 360 view, right? Look at positives, negatives, what happened, why did they go wrong, what could have put them into current situation, right? So it's not just looking at something from one angle. So this is the strategic drift slide that we already looked at. See, it's very important when a technical area is questioned that you must have absolute knowledge of the technical area. Only then you can apply it. Right? So strategic drift had 4 phases. Incremental is where you keep up with the strategy. Drift is where you start to stay away from the environmental change because you believed what happened in the past will happen in future. And flux, you are really lazy, or you're staying away quite a lot, and that has put the company in a lot of issues. And phase 4, you need to do a massive change or a transformational change. If not, it's demise, death. So these are the stages or the phases of strategic drift. Any company that realizes at the end of phase 2 and catches up with the environment, they will be relatively conveniently doing the catching up than companies that will realize at the end of flux. So like I said before, it's important that you constantly scan the environment so that you don't move away much. Okay, there's a question. I think the whole model explain in our answer. No, you don't have to explain the model. For that matter, any model in SBL question, it's about application of the model. So I will tell you how to do that. Right now, when you look at the TMC scenario, it's a company that is into music. They sign in artists and they also produce content. So from 65 to 2000, you will see the revenue is growing, the GP is steady. I mean, it's on a growth path, and also net profit is also good up until 90, and even in 2000 it's all right. So they say the company remained profitable in this period despite musicians taking longer to produce albums and senior management adopting a relaxed and indulgent approach to their creative artists. So meaning during this period, company is doing good. If you look at 2003 to 2007, revenue started to decline and it keeps on reducing, and then gross profit kept on reducing, and in 2007 it's negative, and net profit from 2004 it's pretty bad. Right now, moving a little away from this, if you take a P&L, you have revenue, gross profit and net profit. What do these figures mean? It's very important when you run a business, when you manage a business. The revenue is known as the top line, is what you make by selling a product or a service. But what is this gross profit is? How will you explain what it is? I'm not asking the equation, but what is it? Okay, sales minus cost of sales is gross profit. But what do you get out of that? If I can get some answers from you. Gross profit, what does that mean? Someone says revenue minus cost. No, that's just the equation. It indicates how we tackle with direct cost. No. Gross profit means how well you manage price. Can you manage price? I mean, in a competitive environment, you don't have much say about price. You have to go with the market. It's the actual profit made from sales like contribution. After and cost, no. Profit directly generated from operation. Means our gain directly related to the production. No. Right, no. Now, there are two products. Product A gives you a GP of 10. Product B gives you a GP of 15. So anyone would want to sell product B because that gives you more profit. So remember, at GP level, it's the product's ability to make a profit. Management does not have much of a control there, right? Because selling price, you can't decide it the way you want because there are market forces, limitations in deciding at what price we sell, right? And direct cost, that is the prime cost, again to a greater extent, it's very difficult to control. Of course, you can say that, we are the ones who are buying and then we can reduce. No, you can't reduce the prime cost as you want, right? And then it's pretty common for all the players in the market. So GP is, I hope you would take it down, GP is a product's ability to make a profit. What the management can do there is much limited. Right. Now we come to net profit. So GP minus finance, administration, and distribution, you arrive at net profit. Now tell me, what is the explanation for net profit? What is it? What does net profit say or signify? GP is what the product can give you. So you should be smart enough to choose a product that can give you a higher margin, a higher gross profit. In management meetings, all the key CEOs or even the senior managers, they are worried about the GP. Right, so I have a good answer. They say show the ability of management to control cost. Yes, net profit is the management's ability to make a profit because finance, administration, and distribution is within your control. You decide how much to spend, right? What kind of a setup you want to have, whether to go for debt or equity. So it's within your control. So below GP, it's within the management controls. Therefore, NP signifies or shows the management's ability to make a profit. So GP is product's ability and NP is management's ability. So going back to the scenario, so from 65 to 2000 they've been doing good. So from 2003 to 2007, financial performances are not that great. Actually, it's pretty bad. They are making losses. So if we are to use strategic drift to explain, the phase one, you can see the company started to get into music business, and then they started to produce. Everything was doing going well for them, right? The drift started to occur when music was started to be delivered in a different form, right? The first file sharing company was launched. So how did the management react, right? Some of the employees warned, right? They said, we also need to do this, right? But then senior management, they did not listen. So senior management at TMC believed that this decline in performance was due to them providing the wrong music, promoted to the wrong people at the wrong price. So they got a wrong, scanning of what was going on, right? And to add to the problem, they went and started suing, others. They started to reduce the price, increased advertising expenditure, brought in more artists. But the problem was somewhere else, right? The problem was not the music or the artists or whatever. The problem was the way in which you deliver the content, right? So this is what happens. You had vinyl, and then you had cassettes, and then the CDs came in, and then online, content sharing. So that's how the environment moved. So vinyl, cassette, and CDs, and then online content, while TMZ kept on sticking to their old ways of delivering content. So that's how the drift started to occur. But luckily, what happened, the new CEO, he to an extent understood the problem, right? And TMZ was no longer interested in contracting new artists to the label. Instead, it would focus on deriving profit from its established artist and music catalog, right? He came to licensing agreement with some large digital downloading operators. So now he is catching up with the market, right? Trying to give what the market wants, right? Allowing them to access or sell the music of established artists, right? However, he continued litigation against others because some of the negatives or past practices were still continued. And he also began to generate revenue from licensing the music for use in computer games, etc. So they're getting into more portfolio of products. So in 2011, see now, according to the drift stages, the transformational change that happened in TMZ is the new CEO, right? Like I told you at the beginning, the whole company will rely on the leader, and it is the leader's mindset that drives company's performance. So here, the old leader, his approach was different. He thought whatever they did in the past will work for them in the future. So they were trying wrong methods or wrong strategies, litigation and artists increasing advertising cost, reducing selling price, right? Which pulled the company further down. So there was a massive need for a transformational change. So that's where the new CEO comes into play, right? And his way of thinking is different, and his approach is different. And what happened in 2011, the company reported a gross profit for the first time since 2005. So now things are falling back into place, meaning the company is catching up to the environment and providing what the environment or the customer segment needs, right? So in answering this question, for this analyze the performance of TMZ part, you would explain what happened in these 4 phases, right? What happened in these 4 phases. No need to explain the 4 phases, but you would say what happened in these phases. For example, in the incremental change phase, right? Company was distributing songs and making more money. Revenue started to grow. There was more profits being made, etc. So in the strategic drift phase, a file sharing company was coming into the picture, into the market. But TMZ was still sticking on to the old ways of doing things, and their revenue started to fall. And in the flux stage, revenue further fell and they started to make losses, and they misread the market. So that's where in this is the stage where they increased their advertising expenditure, reduced the selling price, brought in more artists. So they added to the trouble. They did not do anything here, to solve the problem. So they added to the trouble. So that is flux. And finally, the problem was so severe, and luckily they had shareholders to give more money to sustain the losses. So if those shareholders are not there, then it would have been a major problem, right? So because of them, they held on to the business, and the CEO was brought in, which was the transformational change, and the new CEO did certain changes which made the company back into the game, ending up making profits. So any evidence of past strategic drift is what you mentioned from phase 2 and 3. So in answering this question, you must write 4 paragraphs. Each paragraph focused on a particular phase, and also you must have a concluding paragraph as to how they came out of the whole saga. If any of you want answers for this question, I can share that as well. What I'll do is I will get it uploaded or emailed to you or to all of you at once. Okay, there is a question. Can we also say the new CEO was transformation lead as the company was trying to implement? Yes, that's correct. So the new CEO was the transformational leader because he understood what's happening in the market. And that's what made the company turn around. And dear students, it's very important that you write answers and practice, right? If you just look at a question and then the suggested answer, you will think to yourself that, okay, this is what I'll do in the exam. No, that's never going to happen. So what you do is you write answers and then you show it to your respective tutor to get a feedback. That's the only way to pass this exam, or for that matter, any exam. You must have, put your pen down on paper and practice, right? Like I said, it's a skill, writing structured answers. Yeah, model answers I will share at once. Any other questions? Okay, there's another question. So what do we write for the evidence part? So evidence is, like I said, increasing advertising expenditure, right? They thought if they advertise more, they can sell more music. They also thought by reducing selling prices, they can sell more. Then that is another evidence. Then they also brought in more artists and more genres, thinking that more artists and more genres will give them more sales. So this is all about reading the environment wrong. The problem was not the product. The problem was the way it was delivered to the customer, right? Let's say you're a pizza delivery company and you're making fantastic pizzas, but you make the pizza and you go and deliver, but the pizza is cold. No one is going to like it. So it's about then identifying how do I deliver it hot. So it's not only about the product quality, but then the element of hot also should be there and on time. Okay, product is good quality and it is hot, but you can't deliver it after 2 hours. It has to reach within half an hour, 15 minutes. So all aspects of the product and the delivery need to be in place. So you read something wrong, then the drift can happen, right? Because environment keeps on changing, and then you need to keep up constantly. So I hope you understood that point. Please elaborate further on the causes of the strategic drift. Yeah, so one cause is that failure to read the environment. Also thinking that whatever worked for you in the past, the old artists, the old songs, will continue, an old way of delivery will continue to give you profits. Is to comment on the prior CEO behavior. Okay, this is a good question. Can I generally say that they were out of touch with the environment, or I need to go down to the specific? You must go down to the specific. It's very important, right? In any exam, you cannot give generic answers. That's not the whole point of an exam. If boss comes and asks you, what are the factors that is affecting the company, you can't give generic answers. You need to say what and what, 1 2 3 4 5, what specific factors. So in exams it's very important, and there are certain ways to write it, and how many points to write, how much to write. Those I will explain when we do the papers. It's very important to structure your answers. You don't go and put down everything at once. Do we need to analyze financial performance as well, or just commenting on 4 level of strategic drift is enough? You must analyze financial performance. Since they have given you a revenue, GP and NP, you can calculate GP margin and NP margin. That would be enough, right? Percentages. So to see whether the percentages were stable or whether it is increasing or reducing, because with that data you can't do much, but that's enough. GP margin and NP margin would do. Is it okay to write under headings such as incremental change? Yes, very much preferred. Writing under different headings is professional work, and it is very much preferred and required actually for SBL examination, where you have a nice structure to the answer. So that's what I told you. I will explain all those during the model papers. Also, another key confusion that most of the students have is for a 10-mark question, how much do I write? Or for a 15-mark, how much do I write? How many paragraphs? How many pages? All that I will explain when we do the model paper. And another common mistake that most of the students do is when answering question is introducing the company again, and saying what they do and where they are now. Don't waste your time trying to picture a rosy picture or introducing the company into the answer. You will not get any marks, right? You should directly you should directly learn to jump into the answer. You don't have to explain the question again. When the company made GP in 2011, does it mean the transformational change started and TNC go out of strategic drift? Yes, pretty much. That is why they are falling back in place, and they are catching up to the environment, or according to the environment. But one mistake that the current CEO is also doing is continuing with the litigation, right? Because it can bring them. See, it says, however, he continued litigation against others. So he needs to find out the exact reason as to why these cases are on, and then probably get out of that to protect the company reputation, etc. He also began to generate revenue from licensing the music for use in computer games, television advertisements, and personalized ringtones. So he's increasing the portfolio, so that, which is very good. So those are additional revenue streams, and then it can go towards covering your cost and making profits. I have about 4 more minutes. If I can take a few questions if you have. Should we comment on the CEO statement in the last paragraph? CEO statement. What statement is it exactly? You can say that the new CEO is bringing changes that are in line with the environment. And you can conclude with that kind of a statement. Another good question, is it necessary to write down plans before attempting answers? Yes, in SBL it's very important. Your plan of attack. For example, for this question, what and what you write. Now, the plan should not be big so that you'll end up wasting time. The plan should be very small and precise. I'll also give you guidance on that as well later as to how to plan for all the requirements. Please help with professional marks during these webinars. Yes, definitely I'll do that. What if we cannot spot a related modular theory, and it is even possible that some requirement might not relate to us? Yeah, that's a very good question. I would like to read that again. What if we cannot spot a related modular theory, and it is even possible that some requirement might not relate to a specific modular theory? Yes, if you look at the past papers, you'll understand some of the requirements do not relate to certain modules or whatever. It needs a lot of business acumen, lots and lots of common sense to answer. So that's absolutely fine. And even if you can't spot a model, if your answer is within the scope and if it matches the requirements, then you would still get marks. What does the marker look for to give us the 2 professional skills marks for this question? So in this particular question, you had the professional skill of analytical skills. So like I said before, looking at having a 360 view. So if you have sufficiently looked at it, then you would get the 2 marks additional. I mean the professional skill marks. When will you share answer to this question? Yeah, I will share it with everyone via mail probably tomorrow, or probably at the end with all other questions. I have few more questions to discuss in the coming days, so I will share all at once. Should I read requirement first and then exhibits, or read first exhibits? Like with all other questions, all of the examination paper, yes, read the requirement first. Then when you read the exhibit, you understand what matches. For the last 2 days is okay. Can I pick a point from one model and another point from another model to corroborate my answer? I can't make a generic comment on that. If it matches the requirement, yes. Something like I already told you, BCG matrix and product life cycle. So you can, bring in maturity and cash cow. So something like that you can, provided the requirement is in line. Can you please share the best study plan for remaining days? If you have done your technical study work, then the best thing is to practice papers. For the last 2 days is okay for us to get the December 18 and September 18 resolved before. I think what you're asking is whether it's enough on last 2 days. Yeah, but we have a time constraint, so I will try to do 2 papers on the 2 days and explain you the key factors to look at. Right, so thank you very much, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. I will end the webinar now, and I will see you tomorrow, same time. Good night. Thank you.